Okay, we're back. Um, so carrying on from here, what have we got? Let me stop this and start it again. We have a counter. You can see it down there. We created a game over function, so after 10 seconds, um, you might see it flash up in the top. It'll give us the score. We didn't see it there, but it did happen. We have a game over function. This is where we left off in the last video, where as soon as the game is over, it runs this code just once, and um, and it writes the score to the screen. That's all it does. But it only happens once, so then the text goes away right away. That's why we didn't see it. The reason being is we have a Boolean called game on equal true when we start, and then as soon as the timer goes off, if game on is true, then we call the game over function, and which turns game off to false. That's why this only happens once. So you can go back to the other video to go over that. So our next task is to now, how do we have three states. We're going to have an opening screen, a play mode, and a game over screen with a button allowing us to play again. So let's say we want, as soon as game over happens, we want this whole show me the score thing to happen, but stay on the screen. Before we do that, there's another thing I want to do though. For gameplay purposes, I want there to be some sort of countdown going on. This is a timed game, and if the player doesn't see any indication that it's a timed game, it's going to confuse them when suddenly the timer goes off and the game is over. So I'm going to create another variable called countdown. We did this in class, and the code is up there, so I'm going to kind of go through it quickly. I'm going to variable called countdown. And while timer in milliseconds, this code here only happens once. Countdown. Well, let's do this. Countdown equals the timer minus the milliseconds. We'll start there. Timer minus milliseconds. And then I'm going to write that to the screen. I'm going to just start putting stuff on the screen. Text. I'm going to concatenate it. Countdown. 50, 50. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. So this is a good start. If you just, I'm getting all these milliseconds, but if you notice the first number, oh, it didn't reset. Let's see. Did we? Oh, we never reset the milliseconds on the timer. Let's do that first. Timer equals interval plus milliseconds. Let's try it again. So it should start back up again once it gets down to 0. Oh, it did. Yeah, it just started at 9. Okay, that's fine. That's good enough for now. I can tweak that later. Okay, so we are getting a number. That was the hundreds right there. We are getting a number going down, 4, 3. So how can we get that to be a more realistic number, something that makes more sense? People don't think in milliseconds. So we can take, where's our countdown timer? We'll take this whole thing, and if we divide it by 1,000, as in 1,000 milliseconds, should move the decimal over a few. There we go, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So now we want to get rid of all those decimals. So basically we want to round the number. There are various math functions you can use. There's one called floor, there's one called ceiling, there's one called round. I'm using ceiling, which basically always rounds up no matter what, just because I picked that one. So I'm going to add that here. Ceiling, you can look this up in the reference. So I'm going to run that number through the ceiling function, and let's see what happens. Much better. Okay, countdown 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so for a blink there we saw the score. So what I want to do is I want it to show me the countdown while the game is being played and show me the score once the timer has gone off. So two different ways of visualizing things. In this case, I've put the text. I've drawn the text inside the draw loop. But over here in Game Over, I do the text in the Game Over loop, which doesn't really make sense because it's only going to happen once, so it's going to get erased. So this is where we want to start thinking about states. So I'm going to make a variable called state. And in this game, you could set state to anything. It could be a word, a string within quotes if you wanted to do that. I'm going to use numbers. I'm just going to memorize that state 0 is the opening screen, state 1 is the play mode, state 2 is the game over mode. So I'm going to start it at state. I'm going to start it at state 1 in play mode because we haven't made the opening screen yet. So I'm going to start it there. I'm going to make myself a note here that state 0 will equal opening 1 equals play and 2 equals game over. Okay, so I know in the future what state equals what. So now it's just a matter of making an if statement. So if we're in play mode, show the countdown text. If we're in game over mode, show the score. That's a good place to start. So here we go. So if state equals 1, I'm trying to use triple equals more now, so I'll just do that. Equals 1, then show the countdown. So if we're in the play mode, show the countdown text. Else if state equals 2, and then I'm going to take this text down here. Wait, where'd it go? This code right here and put it up inside of there so that it will run every time through the draw loop. Where are we? Right here. Okay, so let's see what happens. Ooh, it's not going to work. I know why, but let me just show you. Yeah, it didn't work because we never changed the state anywhere. Where would we change the state? Well, if we want it to switch from state 1, which is play mode, to state 2, which is game over mode, it makes sense to put that in the game over function, doesn't it? So once game over is called, the state gets switched to 2. Now, let's see what happens. Oh, did I miss something? Wait. Countdown. I didn't even notice the difference. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Score. Okay. So it switched. So we have two different visual modes. But one thing you notice, it's still keeping score. The drops are still there. The bucket is still there. We still have a ways to go. But we've got some sort of structure built here that can control what is being shown at what state in the game. And that's a really great thing. So um, let's start. How about we start by how do we get rid of the drops and the bucket once game over happens? Um, well, we don't want them to move and we don't want them to show. And we don't want them to score and get caught or anything like that. So what's the code that is controlling whether they move, whether they show, whether they get caught? It's all of this right here. All of that. So if you think about it, all this code that's making all this happen, we only want it to happen in state number 1, which is the play state. So doesn't it make sense to take all of this and actually stick it inside of if this conditional statement here? Let's try it. Take all of this. And just paste it in there. Reformat. Okay, so if state is 1, play mode, then do all that droppy movie thing. And otherwise, don't. Let's try it. Let's get some points. Oh, there we go. There's your game over screen. It doesn't look like much right now. All it's doing is showing the score. We still need to have some sort of graphics there, some sort of information for the player, and we need some sort of button to restart the game. But we have just made 2 different states. So the next step now is to now actually make a button that starts the game and then also a button that restarts the game, which are very similar buttons. So that'll be the next video. All right, see you.